15 minutes to kick off in Memphis. And yes, I did just wake up. Mark Rogers TV's college football predictions. Let's get to it. A lot of interesting angles and matchups. The Big 12 has played out of its mind thus far with Oklahoma State's win over Colorado, the Pac-12 runner-up. Just demolished them last night, and the Big 12 has looked good. The ACC, the SEC, not so much. That close to being 0-5. It'll be interesting to continue the comparisons because I don't compare one game. That's meaningless. But if you collect 5 or 6, as I did in this one, the Liberty Bowl, TCU, yes, playing out of the Big 12, which is playing well. But, man, they got drubbed by just about everybody decent on its schedule except for a good effort against Oklahoma, losing by 6 against the Sooners earlier in the season. It took Arkansas to overtime. We don't know how good the Razorbacks are, meaning they're not that good. They're decent, but they lost to Kansas State by 24, Oklahoma State by 25. They lost to Texas Tech by 3, Texas Tech. Georgia, on the other hand, despite the 7-5 finish, man, they took Tennessee to a Hail Mary play. They beat Auburn. They beat North Carolina. They also beat some decent bowl teams in Vandy, Kentucky, and the like. I like Georgia plus the 3.5 points against TCU. Georgia's going to win the game as well. Jacob Eason with a full 2 weeks of bowl practices. I like Georgia getting better and defeating TCU, and with a combination of running backs in the backfield for the Bulldogs, including, of course, Nick Chubb. Yes, Georgia plus the 3.5 against TCU, and they win the game. Difficult selection next because Tommy Armstrong probably is not playing. Nebraska has also lost its best wide receiver by far, Jordan Westerkamp, and also by suspension, safety Nathan Gary. Nate Gary, third on the team in tackles, 4 interceptions to lead the team, has been a senior starter, has started for 3 years. This is a tough one to pick because this line was about 3 points before the injuries and suspensions were confirmed. And I would have loved Tennessee to cover 3 points, but 9.5, I've got to think Nebraska is going to find a way to squeeze the air out of the ball, keep the ball away from Josh Dobbs to a certain extent, pound the rock with Terrell Newby, take Nebraska plus the 9.5 at the Music City Bowl. Tennessee wins the game. Stanford, North Carolina, we previewed this from about 52 different angles with a number of bloggers. And I like Stanford to knock off North Carolina. I hope the weather is horrible in El Paso. I don't believe it's going to be. I think it's going to be fine. But Stanford defeats North Carolina. Take the Cardinal, even though they've got to cover 2.5 points, and they're not going to score a ton of points in this one. But I just got to believe in the more physical team, i.e. Boston College over Maryland. Michigan, Florida State at the Orange Bowl. Florida State playing in Florida. Fairly close to home. It's quite a ways from the Panhandle down to Miami, so not necessarily a home game, but the crowd's going to be in Florida State's favor. They're just too talented a team to give 7.5 points to. Michigan's very good. Michigan's better than Florida State. Michigan, I've said it a number of times here, is one of the 4 best teams in the country. But Florida State's one of the 8 or 9 best teams in the country. Take Florida State. It's plus more than a score, more than a touchdown, 7.5 points. Michigan wins the game. Take Florida State plus 7.5. And when I almost or strongly emphasize a game like this, that doesn't mean Florida State can't lose by. It could be an extremely competitive game, a very good game, great game. Michigan could be up in the fourth quarter by 3 points, and then what happens? They get a garbage touchdown with 52 seconds left. 52 being my favorite number during this video. 52 seconds left, and they win by 10. But it was a great game, and it was that close. But over time, if they played 100 times, Florida State's not going to lose by more than 7.5 points. Wow, they're going to stay within a touchdown 75 to 80% of the time. And finally, do I really want to select this game? The Arizona Bowl. It's at 5:30 Eastern time. It's Air Force in South Alabama. The Jags, we've had their head coach on a number of times, Joey Jones, great guy. He's built that program. Air Force had a fine 9-3 campaign. But if bowl season has taught us anything, it has taught us to take the double-digit underdog. Double-digit underdogs, I believe, are still 5-1. It was 5-1 at one point. It is still 5-1. Oh, take South Carolina. 6-1 against the spread. South Alabama plus the 14 points. Double digits. Yeah. Take it. All right. Let's hear from you now on Mark Rogers TV.